Good morning. It's wonderful that all of you have come out here to be with Jesus in the midst of what's going to be a pretty bad storm. But remember, Jesus is always with us in all the storms that we have had in our own lives. This weekend we hear from Matthew the call of the first apostles, when Jesus says to Peter and Andrew that pretty famous play on words, that instead of being fishermen, he will make them fishers of men. And then Jesus sees James and John, who are also fishermen, who are mending their nets with their father Zebedee. And Jesus calls them to follow him. And as we read in the gospel, immediately they left their boat and their father and followed him. Has that part ever struck you as strange? That James and John left their father? And what about Peter and Andrew? We know that Peter was married, and tradition holds that he also had children. And these two breadwinners just give up their jobs, their livelihoods, at the drop of a hat. Yes, that's exactly what happened. All four of these men put Jesus first, ahead of their families. That had to be, at some level, very hard on them. Clearly, all four of these men knew that what they were doing would have consequences on their families. It's not that they didn't love their families anymore. Of course they did. But they were doing what they were supposed to do, showing by their actions, who really was the priority in their lives. Yahweh, God. But it's also very important to remember who is making these calls. Jesus. You know, you might be shocked by what I'm about to say, but did you know that God is pretty smart? Did you also know that he's a really good planner? Jesus is called to the apostles. The fulfillment of his plan would never actually result in harm to the apostles' families. God had a plan not just for the apostles themselves, but also for their families. Now, there is something very important about this gospel that we need to look at. Something that is so obvious, I think it's very easy to miss. None of these apostles volunteered. The gospel doesn't say Peter saw Jesus walking by the shore and ran over to him and prostrated himself in front of him and begged him, "Lord, Lord, please accept me as your apostle." No. Jesus acted first. Jesus was the one who, with all the apostles, called them. None of them volunteered. But they were the ones who, after being called, said yes. Said yes to the incredible invitation that Jesus gave them to join him in the kingdom of God. And you want to hear something even crazier? Jesus has called each one of us to also do something that he wants us to do. And that call is not a one-time deal. Jesus' call to each one of us continues throughout our whole life, right up to the moment we die. And he's likely going to call us and has called us to do different things in different times in our lives. Just as the apostles did different things in different times of their lives,
but always oriented towards the same goal: serving God. What is it? What is it that he wants all of us individually to do for him, to do for his bride, the church? Your calling from God, what God has already called you to do, is unique for each and every one of you. But let's be clear. Look at the gospel. Look at history. God is not calling you just about a career. God is not calling you just to be a teacher or a nurse or whatever you might be doing now or whatever you have done in the past. God is also not just calling you to be a spouse or a mom or a dad or a grandparent or to be single. The great saints throughout history, they also had careers. They were also spouses. They were also moms and dads, just like us. But God still wanted them to do more. To do the more. Just like he wants us to do the more. And they became great because they did the more. And almost always, that involves some type of sacrifice on their part. Not necessarily a sacrifice of their life, but with the saying yes to God, even when saying yes is hard. It's hard what God has asked us to do. And even when they actually wanted to say no. It's time. It's time. It's time to stop saying that we're going to put God first. It's time to start doing.